flesh. Subatomic particles, molecules and breath. 528 hertz frequency is radiating from the left region of my chest. Daughter of the dust, portal open chest. Jump into oblivion when I say the words trust me. Must be some kind of wonderful to see black space and stardust right in front of you. I am barely one of you. Time traveling rhyme patterns form another view. Fluid creation, fluid in equations. Moving out of stillness, making universal statements. I am water with a vibrating aura. Flyest light beam of the highest ranking order. I speak life, full moons at midnight. Magic at the altar, pure music, hidden rights. Quartz crystal, reflections of the spectrum. Magnetic force field, two poles in connection. Pulses of energy, bionic symmetry. The bond between universes, ionic synergy. I'm planets, dark matter, finite and infinity. First mother, back at it, the divine femininity. First mother, back at it, the divine femininity.
Who am I? I'm God in the flesh. Subatomic particles, molecules and breath. 528 hertz frequency is radiating from the left region of my chest. Daughter of the dust, portal open chest. Jump into oblivion when I say the words trust me. Must be some kind of wonderful to see black space and stardust right in front of you. I am barely one of you. Time traveling rhyme patterns form another view. Fluid creation, fluid in equations. Moving out of stillness, making universal statements. I am water with a vibrating aura. Flyest light beam of the highest ranking order. I speak life, full moons at midnight. Magic at the altar, pure music, hidden rights. Quartz crystal, reflections of the spectrum. Magnetic force field, two poles in connection. Pulses of energy, bionic symmetry. The bond between universes, ionic synergy. I'm planets, dark matter, finite and infinity. First mother, back at it, the divine femininity.
Blessings. This is Priestess HetHeru, RaatMwt. Join me as I examine and explore the unfolding age of Aquarius, culminating in year 2039, and its global impact on the consciousness of humanity. Join me with my very special guest as we remove the veil of death and destruction and its propaganda machinery for disempowerment. Join us as we deflate its power, providing healing solutions and methodologies for liberation, and the cultural framework for the restoration of Ma'at within us and on this earth. Join us.
Resurrection time, 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, starting Tuesday, January 9th.
I have seen gods fly. I've seen men build weapons that I couldn't even imagine. I've seen aliens drop from the sky.
Yeah.
But I have never seen anything like this. How much more are you hiding?
Hold up. Let's go.
We are home. My son, it is your time.
Show me my respect and bow down.
You get to decide what kind of king you are going to be. Don't freeze.
I never freeze.
The revolution will not be televised.
Show me my respect and bow down. We own ya. We own ya. We only getting started now. Cause we own ya. Everybody think they know me now. Cause we own ya. You and I'm a homie. Cause we own ya.
I waited my entire life for this. The world's gonna start over. I'ma burn it all.
What happens now determines what happens to the rest of the world.
You will not be able to stay home, brother. You will not be able to plug in, turn on, and cop out. The revolution will not be televised.
Let's have some fun.
The revolution will be live.
Let's go higher in our consciousness. Let's go higher, higher consciousness. Let's go higher in our consciousness. Let's go higher. The time's come for me to change the way I think, to change the way I feel, for me to go beyond what everybody thinks, what everybody says is real. Today I take a step into a time and space of peace and possibility, and here I'm gonna stay until I find my place, my true divinity. Higher consciousness. Let's go higher, higher in our consciousness.
Hotep, Hotep, Hotep. Peace and blessings. Welcome back. Welcome back to Resurrection Time. This is your hostess, Priestess HetHeru, RaatMwt, and we have our guest joining us. That was one of them chiming in, and we're going to have a wonderful show today. We have two fantastic, blacktastic brothers joining us today, and they're going to really bring their wisdom and knowledge and enlighten us on the symbolic nature of the film The Black Panther, which has invoked quite a healing and quite a stir in the African communities worldwide. And we are very, very happy to be doing this show today so that we can continue this healing further. We have two brothers joining us today, Brother Cinque Brathway from the Ilambe Brath Foundation, and he is someone who is very dear to my heart. He is also the son of Ilambe Brath, who was the co-founder of the Patrice Lumumba Coalition, and is one of my mentors. And I'd like to welcome him to the show, Resurrection Time. How you doing, brother, today?
I'm doing good. Thank you. I'm doing very good today. I'm happy to be here with you.
Thank you so much for joining us. And I am also here trying to get some things going with this this screen today. Bear with us, family. We also have Brother Jabari Osaze joining us today. Brother Osaze, Hotep, how you doing today?
Peace, Queen. How are you?
I'm blessed. We're gonna open up the floor and let you brothers share, because I'm having some technical problems here. I'm gonna have to talk to my producer about this screen. So if you could just introduce yourselves to the Inner Light family. Brother Cinque, I'll start with you and share a little bit about yourself.
All right, Inner Light family. My name is Cinque Brathway, or Cinque Brath. I use either moniker equally. Doesn't make a difference to me. I'm sharing my experience about the Black Panther movie today. Something, this is ironic because this is something that I used to do all of the time. When I was writing for AfroNet magazine, it was one of the first online magazines to ever get introduced to our community. And I used to do movie reviews all the time. So I feel right at home talking about this subject, especially when it comes to Black Panther, because what people don't know, or very few people know, is that my father, Ilambe Brath, started out as an illustrator, basically as a cartoonist. And he never really had a problem with our comic book infatuation. In fact, one of his co-founders of AJAZ, which stands for African Jazz Art Society Studio, Brother Chris Hall, created the first African superhero to appear in comics. His name was Little Zing. And anyone in Harlem back in the day, you might have seen Little Zing T-shirts on 125th Street. That comic book that Chris Hall created under the AJAZ umbrella for Little Zing also ran in the comic strip in Queens in Our Time magazine. And back in 1963 is when Little Zing was created. So he's the first African superhero. Black Panther would be second. So again, that's just a little fact of the matter that I wanted to share with you all before I have Brother Jabari speak.
Yes. And you can share a little later about your work as well with the Alambe Breath Foundation, which has been really phenomenal. Brother Jabari, Hotep, brother, welcome to the Inner Light family.
Yes, thank you. I'm honored to speak to the Inner Light family. Honored.
Yes, can you share a little bit about your work as well? I'm having some technical problems seeing my screen at the moment.
Sure.
And yes.
Yes, I actually, first let me just go ahead and say peace. I'm so honored to be able to speak to the Inner Light family. I am honored that you've asked me to be on. I hope that I'll bring a new level of analysis to this discussion around this film that is breaking all sorts of records. And just by way of understanding me, family, I should let you know that I'm a historian and a Kemetic priest. I've journeyed to Africa. I travel extensively in Africa and have taken, with the African Genesis Institute, over 3,000 people to see ancient Kemet, to see that land that spawned civilization. So we've traveled there on many occasions. I do annual trips there into other parts of Africa, other parts of the world. I've been studying Africa, and particularly focusing on ancient history for over 30 years now. And I'm also the chief priest of the Shrine of Ma'at in Harlem. And so clearly we're also trying to bring the knowledge of our ancient ancestors to bear on our modern situation. And so that is some of where my major work occurs. I'm the author of the book, 7 Little White Lies That Conspire to Destroy the Black Self-Image. I am a media critic as well, so I'm really excited to talk about this particular issue. My upcoming book, one of my upcoming books will actually be on racist images in cartoons. And so I spend a lot of time focus on the kind of media that is applicable or attractive to our youth, and have also been a fan of sort of the superhero genre for forever, because I actually read as a child, and now I read and critique as an adult. So I'm excited to be here to discuss this particular issue.
Yes, I'm so grateful. And I'd like to give salutations to Sekhmet and Bast at this time, who were shown in this film, the goddesses Sekhmet and Bast, from the ancient Kemetic pantheon. And I think that, it's such a blessing for me as a Kemetic priestess to bear witness to this level of healing in terms of this being depicted, on the big screen, so that our people could once again, reconnect to their ancestral greatness. And so that is really what drew me, to the film on the level that I was drawn, was the spiritual dimensions of this, the cultural aspects of this, which I think is most important for our people, particularly, in the West, who have gone through the levels of, enslavement and have been stripped of their culture, their spiritual culture. And one of the things about this film that was really powerful is that it showed a theocracy, okay? It showed that our people were led, in their society, in their governmental structures, in their decision-making, in their way of life by a spiritual force, by a spiritual power. And we're able to connect to that power to receive guidance. And that is something that is extremely powerful, and it's something that, we were able to receive, in really seeing this film, on the big screen. What would you brothers say about that? Brother Cinque, we'll start with you.
I'd say you're 100% on point. I think that the reason that you have so many of our people going back to see the movie again and again is because they connected spiritually and culturally. Yeah. And when I'm talking about culturally, I'm talking about image-wise, the look, the aesthetic of the Black excellence, the Black royalty, That has not happened with Hollywood movies, and basically forever. This usually the sort of images we get. We all know. We get us enslaved, us downtrodden, us hustlers, dealers. But this was more of an image of royalty, and speaking back also, what people think about what our lives would have been like had it not been interrupted by the colonizers, And when I talk about polling people, just asking them questions about the film, especially sisters, what was your favorite part? It's things that were cultural things, like when she took the wig off and she tossed it back and said, "Get this, it was a disgrace." I find them talking about and speaking about those things. When it comes to the politics of the film, you're not going to get any agreement from our community, because depending on where you're at politically and what you've seen in life or what your experience have been, you're more than likely going to be swayed by that, But from a spiritual and cultural aspect, I feel like this movie tugs on the hearts of people, especially hitting close to home, because my mother just saw the film within the last 3 days, my cousin had taken her, and already she wants to go back. Now, my mother, Mr. Brathway, is one of the original Grandassa models that were the all-natural models that were created by my father, Elambe Brathway, under the African Jazz Art Society studio. Recently, the New York Post just did a big thing talking about, how Black is Beautiful came into the whole culture because of these fashion shows. And this started under AJazz, but it got its way initially from Marcus Garvey through Carlos Cooks. It was all about buy Black, be proud of yourself, be proud of what you look like. One of the things, Carlos Cooks, who basically picked up after Marcus Garvey, he was the one who started to have a beauty contests, and you had to be natural. So basically what happened in those contests, the winner, my father and them seeing, because they were part of African Nationalist Pioneer Movement. They came in through Mr. Cooks, and they saw the winner had straightened her hair back when she came to pick up her money the next week. So they're like, this is a problem. Even though we doing this is not enough. So they created AJazz, and they began models, natural models, all natural hair. You could not have a perm or anything in that way. So the whole idea was for our women to feel proud about who they were and what they look like. And this is what we see a lot in this film resonating with our people. They don't even really know the backstory of the Black Panther or how it fits into the Marvel universe, that sort of continuum, but they know how they felt when they were there. They felt royal. They felt beautiful. They felt like this is how we should be. They felt really in tune with the film. And I think that's the spiritual and the cultural aspects of the women warriors and the female entities in a role in the film, the role they played. Some don't even realize it. All of them basically have historical, allegorical people who, Christopher Priest had, sort of based them on, but they know that they felt like this is how it should have been. If there had been no colonialism, this is, what our society would be like. So I just 100% agree with you about the spiritual and cultural aspects are the most powerful parts of the film. And it is the reason that we have so many of us going back, and it's the reason Black Panther has been destroying the box office.
Give thanks. Brother Jabari, what would you say about that?
I absolutely, with regard to the manner in which the actual kingdom of Wakanda draws its power, I think that there's a lot for us to actually study and learn. And I agree with Brother Cinque that there are some people who disagree with the political analysis on it. And I think that to some degree, when we talk about disagreement around this, that's actually a sign of a great film, because it allows us to talk about issues that we need to talk about. It allows us to actually delve further into our history and our current fight and say, well, what exactly should we do moving forward? It certainly is so much more than a superhero movie, because it actually allows us to talk about what is the role of the diasporan African in the world. What is the role of our connection? What can we say about our connection to our African continent, our African mother? How do we resolve the feelings that some of us have around our enslavement and the challenges that we've had? And of course, with regard to the way that its kingdom and its royalty is actually constructed, we should also recognize that we see that the Black Panther, powerful hero, receives his power from the ancestral realm. The commentary is, in order for you to be powerful African, you must connect to your ancestors and you must connect to your African home. That is where your power lies. That's a really amazing commentary to come from a film that actually has been financed by Disney and Marvel. And I think we should even talk about some of the folks that put this together and their thinking around it, because I think that as I've now seen the movie 4 times in the theater, I actually recognize that this film is absolutely unusual with regard to the image that we have seen of people of African descent on the large screen since the large screen has been created. We've seen anything like this. And so I think that it's interesting and exciting for us to talk about where we can go from this film today.
Yes.
And Brother Jabari, I definitely agree. I don't think that Disney understood the impact that it would have either, and it's going to be interesting because, like, I recently came across some information that said it was suggesting about the financials of how this movie basically is on the doorstep of $1 billion, and how, the lead actor, the Black Panther, was the highest paid. He received $3 million, whereas in Thor, the actor, he got $8 million, and her Scarlett Johansson got $10 million for Black Widow, and Robert Downey got like $50 million. But then you have other movies, Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, where they all got $3 million also. And I would suggest maybe they was thinking the Black Panther would not do this well at the box office. But for one, I'm hoping now they're seeing what it done, that all of these brothers and sisters get paid more of the lion's share for a sequel, because the sequel was not in their contract. So, everybody should be at least tripling their salary.
Okay, I think I just want to veggie back on something that y'all just brought to light, which I think is very significant, because, Sekhmet and Bast are healing goddesses. And, this is very powerful, invoking the energies of these goddesses is definitely bringing a healing. But one of the things I want to really address, and is something that you both spoke to, is the political analysis, which I think, in the community we've heard different things, about that. And I would concur that the presence of the colonizer, as far as the CIA agent that they inserted into this film, was quite offensive. I mean, and it's actually quite ridiculous to be seeing an alignment, of what really was a depiction of HetHeru, in the Kemetic pantheon with, servants of a pep, you know what I'm saying, for real. I mean, which, a pep in our language is really the demon of death and destruction, the gobbler of souls. We know the history of the CIA, particularly in the Black nationalist community. We know the history, we know the agendas, we're familiar with the policies and the destruction that we've seen. And we also are aware of the AFRICOM program that's going on right now on the African continent. So I think that, when people in the nationalist community have a problem with the insertion of a CIA agent, that they're totally within their right mind to have that understanding. What would you say about that as obviously being a form of propaganda in the film?
I'm sorry, Brother Cinque. Did you want to take that one?
I'll take it. You go first.
I actually think that in many ways, our writers, Joe Rockhold and of course Ryan Coogler, might have been able to sneak in a somewhat subversive message in the use of the CIA. Of course, if there's any group from the United States that will become aware of Black Panther, it would be the CIA. So we're expecting that this group, these clandestine warriors that have been really brewing trouble for the rest of the world for decades, they would be the ones to figure it out. But the commentary is that they do not know about Wakanda until it is revealed to them by the Wakandans themselves. So in many ways, what they're saying is, look at this naked power of the United States. It is not more powerful the African origin. I think that's the way I look at it. And I think that when they use him in the film, and this is something I thought was very interesting, the role of the CIA is depicted by Martin Freeman, who was in the the Lord of the Rings series, actually in The Hobbit. When you actually look at his role as Everett K. Ross, the CIA agent, in the entire movie, his arrogance, his Western, European, white arrogance is questioned at every step of the movie. And I think that his role there is also interesting because in many ways he is the arrogance of the European, acknowledging that they are not the be-all and end-all of civilization. From the beginning of the movie, when he thinks that he's to simply tell the Black Panther, King T'Challa, that he's going to take their target, their espionage tip, he says it in a really condescending, sort of patronizing way. Like, look, I didn't tell anyone about you, so just back up. This is our game. And T'Challa standing with him in the casino, by the way, for those of you who are listening and haven't seen the movie, shame on you. You should have seen it already. Spoilers ahead. Spoilers ahead. Just know that when we see them standing in the casino in Busan, Korea, this is when we see Everett K. Ross say, well, listen, this is a big game. Stay out of this. And that's when he begins to recognize that there's more than meets the eye. He's the voice that we hear in the trailer that said, I've seen all these things. By the way, when he says I've seen aliens come from the sky and all this other stuff, what is he referring to? Actually talking about the rest of the Avengers. He's talking about the rest of the major superheroes in Marvel Pantheon. And his commentary at the end is, I've seen all that, but I've not seen anything like this. In other words, with all the things that white man, ancient Africa in its modern form without the interference of Europeans is greater than that. And so I think that it's an interesting device. I think that if they were clearer about it, perhaps Disney would not have allowed them to do this. But this is one of the reasons why our community should really be talking about this film, because it brings up so many important items that we need to discuss.
Okay.
Yeah, just to piggyback on what Brother Jabari said and to deal with the question, I think, Priestess, I don't think it's just the Black nationalist community. I think a lot of people recognize that there's troublesome to have a CIA agent in that role. From a historical vantage point, we know what the CIA have done to African leaders over the world, whether it's giving the United States government information so the South Africans could capture Nelson Mandela, whether their role in getting Lumumba killed. We know that they have been harmful. They have been against our community. And even some academics suggested what from a political point, they should have tried to have the white guy as a SHIELD agent or somebody from SHIELD in that role so that they could not have the backlash. But I say to that, we have to remember, those would all have been great, and they would have made the film better. But Marvel is not in the business of setting up our liberation. We see liberation aspects in the film, but that is not what the film is set out to do. In fact, many of the complaints about the film is because in all of the majesticness of the film, the spiritual and cultural, we expecting it to do everything, even have the political. It does not really have that political. Now, when I say it doesn't have that political, you know, what most people think about is Killmonger versus T'Challa, the Black Panther. I'm not even so much talking about that. I mean, I've seen so many people saying Killmonger was right. In fact, I saw Panther the day before it came out, and I already knew that many of our brothers and sisters here were going to identify with Killmonger. But even the more you say Killmonger had the right message, he was the wrong messenger. We realized that he was destroyed spiritually. He could never have connected really with Wakanda. But they're always within the Black Panther comics, there always has been throughout its history, these political aspects which Marvel had not known how to deal with. And we have to keep in mind that Marvel is part of the corporation that is not in the business of setting up our liberation. So, and I think that a lot of people were looking for it to have that. And if you follow the comic, you know that it's really not going to have that. Because, I mean, if we look at it, the Hatu Zarazi, the Dogs of War, in which they were the ones who, you know, Killmonger said, you know, that was basically the group they were spies, and they go all over the world do these things. In the comic, Killmonger and another brother, Moses Magnum, part of what they did with this group was part of what the difference rather was that the Hatu Zarazi, they would just kill sort of like the Europeans would. They would sort of be like they would get involved in things the Europeans would. They would get involved in torture. T'Challa was like, no, we're not torturing. These are the same issues that happen right here in this hemisphere, in which presidents of this country and people here were voting over whether or not, you know, waterboarding and these sort of things are torture. So these things have played out in the Black Panther too. These sort of issues in the comic books, you know, and even, you know, what people are looking to, they said, well, what about the fact that there's also a political element to the idea that Winter Soldier, who they call White Wolf in the film, is in Wakanda. But again, this film is something that is fitting into the Marvel universe, of comics, and Marvel is more concerned with getting this film to fit into their larger Civil War complex and their larger branding than our political concerns, you know. And this is why, of course, if we really want to have something for totally liberating for our people, we have to have it from start to finish, where we control, you know, well, then we can look for the politics of it to also be correct. But as long as it's coming from Marvel, we have to deal with the idea that Marvel has been suspect on the issue of politics, and their politics have never been clear. If we look at the whole idea when people were talking about the branding that Stan Lee had been, I won't put Stan Lee, but Disney and Marvel had been doing with the Black Panther. Letitia Wright, she's doing an interview. She has Angela Davis on and like, oh, Black Panther movement, even though Angela Davis was not a Black Panther, and she was part of the Black Panther movement. You see our brother Michael B. Jordan on the cover of GQ magazine. He's donned out like Huey Newton. All the imagery was being tied back into the Black Panther. Yet we know from reading the comic back in the day that there was a time in which Marvel had taken the title of Black Panther away and changed his name temporarily to Black Leopard, because the politics of the Panther Party had gotten so hot that Marvel didn't want to have anything to do with that affiliation. Of course, eventually that was short-lived and they brought it back. But Marvel has not is not going to be in the business, whether they through Disney or whoever, of taking anything on the chin for us. That is up for us, and it is up for us to be able to look at the film and determine what politically was incorrect or what we not identifying with. As brother Jabari say, it's one of the best things about it is that there's been this discussion about the film. Yes. There's so many people wanting to decode it, look at symbols in it, look at language, look at things being said inside of the movie. So that's one of the best things. I mean, I don't really remember a film really out. Well, actually, I do remember one film that sort of caused a fanfare, which was Get Out. I remember when that got out. That was, of course, but not like this, not like the Panther. Because when I first saw Black Panther, my first thing was, when I thought of Killmonger in the politics, Killmonger was basically like my favorite movie of all time, which was The Spook Who Sat by the Door by Sam Greenlee. You know, that's basically who I had put him in line with, except for anybody who knows The Spook Who Sat by the Door. The brother wanted to get all this training, and then he was bringing it back to the community to help liberate the ghettos in the urban areas with all of the stuff that he had known. But you would never be able to identify he was someone who had this sort of political leaning, because he stayed low key and he came in there and got what he wanted, but he knew the reason he wanted. That's very political, and that's one of the first things that I came out with when I first saw the film was like, Killmonger was like the spook who sat by the door. So everybody's gonna see politics in it, depending on what they've been exposed to, what they've seen, and they're gonna take it from there. But again, we cannot look for this film to liberate us and all those things, but we should film to have a discussion.
Right. Yes, I think you're absolutely right, because those mechanisms are not designed for our liberation, so we should not look to them for that. However, we should be critical and have a critical analysis of anything that's coming out that's influencing our people. We're going to take a station break because we're having some technical problems. When we come back, we'll continue this discussion, and we'll be opening the phones about 4:15. So please call in if you have any comments or questions.
You will not be able to stay home, brother. You will not be able to plug in, turn on, and cop out. You will not be able to lose yourself on Skag and skip out for beer during commercials, because the revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be brought to you by Xerox in 4 parts without commercial interruptions. The revolution will not show you pictures of Nixon blowing a bugle and leading a charge by John Mitchell, General Abrams, and Spyro Agnew to eat hog maws confiscated from a Harlem sanctuary. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be brought to you by the Schaefer Award Theater and will not star Natalie Woods and Steve McQueen or Bullwinkle and Julia. The revolution will not give your mouth sex appeal. The revolution will not get rid of the nub. The revolution will not make you look 5 pounds thinner, because the revolution will not be televised, brother. There will be no pictures of you and Willie Mae pushing that shopping cart down the block on the dead run, or trying to slide that color TV into a stolen ambulance. NBC will not be able to predict the winner at 8:32 on report from 29 districts. The revolution will not be televised. There will be no pictures of pigs shooting down brothers on the instant replay. There will be no pictures of pigs shooting down brothers on the instant replay. There will be no pictures of Whitney Young being run out of Harlem on a rail with a brand new process. There will be no slow motion or still lights of Roy Wilkins strolling through Watts in a red, black, and green liberation jumpsuit that he has been saving for just the proper occasion. Green Acres, Beverly Hillbillies, and Hooterville Junction will no longer be so damn relevant, and women will not care if Dick finally got down with Jane on Search for Tomorrow, because black people will be in the street looking for a brighter day. The revolution will not be televised. There will be no highlights on the 11 o'clock news and no pictures of Harry R. Women liberationists and Jackie Onassis blowing her nose. The theme song will not be written by Jim Webb or Francis Scott Keys, nor sung by Glenn Campbell, Tom Jones, Johnny Cash, Engelbert Humperdinck, or The Rare Earth. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be right back after a message about a white tornado, white lightning, or white people. You will not have to worry about a dove in your bedroom, the tiger in your tank, or the giant in your toilet bowl. The revolution will not go better with Coke. The revolution will not fight germs that may cause bad breath. The revolution will put you in the driver's seat. The revolution will not be televised, will not be televised, will not be televised, will not be televised. The revolution will be no rerun, brothers. The revolution will be live.
For the best in metaphysical, spiritual, and holistic programming, you're listening to InnerlightRadio.com, the healing frequency.
Hotep, and welcome back to Resurrection Time. This is your hostess, Priestess HetHeru, RaatMwt, and we're joined today by two of our very special guests, Brother Cinque Brathway from the Ilambe Brath Foundation, and Brother Jabari Osaze, who is a Kemetic priest and has a shrine for Ma'at and is out of New York City and doing some great work. Brother Jabari, you were speaking during the break about some of your thoughts and wanted to veggie back on some things that were on the floor. Would you like to share that with us?
Absolutely. I really want to thank Brother Cinque for leading us into perhaps one of the most important topics that everybody is talking about, and that really regards who is the hero in this film. And I always begin by saying that every great story has a hero, and every great story, in every great story, the hero has a major conflict that they have to try to address. And in this movie, T'Challa is exactly the same. He has a major conflict where he is now the king of this amazing nation, but then he comes to understand that some of the things that the nation has done to be great are things that he actually disagrees with. So this is a major, major conflict for him. He, as he says in the film, he's the king of Wakanda, not the king of the world. But clearly, remember that the audience for this film is primarily African Americans. I think that even Disney understood that, releasing it in February at Black History Month. So that clearly, I think that they understood that we, in many ways, would find some of the comments of Eric Killmonger, the major antagonist in the film, the anti-hero in the film, to actually resonate to them. And I think that that becomes very, very interesting. Now, I know that there's some people who say he's a hero, but let me just quickly say, I'll throw this in and maybe we'll talk about it a little bit. I think that clearly he's an anti-hero, but there's some things that he does in the film that I think sometimes when I'm talking to folks in the hood, they easily forget. We see him shoot through his major love interest to get his target.
Yes.
We see him slice the neck of one of the Dora Milaje and laugh after doing it. We see him grab the neck of the elder that takes Zuri, the sort of the spiritual center for the movie. When he kills Zuri, he is taken, his role is taken by an elder sister. We see him grab her neck, lift her into the air, and tell her to do the ish that he says to do. So clearly, I think we should understand that he is not the hero, but that the central conflict that T'Challa is facing is going to be mouthed by this character. So I think that is very interesting.
Yes, I think that's very significant. We saw misogyny in those scenes that, was very, difficult, for many of us to swallow in this film. But I think it's an important point, for us to understand as it pertains to patriarchy and war as well. And also, as you said, the brother is not a hero. I think that that's been something that we've heard and seen, people identifying, which is understandable on many levels in terms of this character and what some of the things he was saying, what he was wanting to fulfill in terms of the liberation of African people worldwide. But the means that he used to attain that was what we're questioning, and also the intention also, and the the level of misogyny in those particular scenes. What would you say about that, Cinque, Brad?
Well, I say in terms of Killmonger, I'm not sure actually that he's definitely a misogynist. I think anytime you have the fighting, most of the fighters and the warriors who are focused on the women in the role are women. So if Killmonger is going to be in conflict, and he's a killer machine, he's a colonial agent of the CIA, those would of course then be his targets. I think, though, he is spiritually destroyed, so of course we see why he would do what he did with the heart-shaped herb. But the Dora Milaje are fierce fighting force, and we don't want the antagonist to go easy on them. We seen even in earlier movies where one of the Dora Milaje was with the king, and she came close to the Black Widow, who's supposed to be a amazing fighting woman in the Marvel universe, and she told her, like, basically move or you will be moved. So people get a glimpse of the Dora Milaje, but they're incredible fighters. They're awesome warriors in the Marvel universe, and because they are women, we don't want the script writers to try to have an angle where he doesn't come into this serious conflict with them as he would another soldier.
Okay, I would disagree that misogyny was not present in that scene. But I think that when we look at this historically and culturally speaking, as far as the homie tribe that they were modeling after for these women, we see again the reconnection to our spiritual culture, because the homie tribe also worships the goddess Oya, which is a warrior goddess, and we see the strength that we haven't seen of Black women in a long time on screen. And so this was something that was applauded, that these women were warriors, that they were actually the protectors of the nation, and that they were within their own right powerful. And that's very, very significant for Black women and young girls and Black men to uphold and see. So we're very, very excited that this was reflected, and that we had Sisters Lupita and Denai, who not only carried this message in the film, but have been carrying this message, outside of the film and in their community activities as well.
Well, just to add on what you said about Oya, Marvel does deal with the African warrior goddess of Oya, who's the goddess of wind, sudden change, and hurricanes. She's called Storm. She's transferred into Storm, part of the X-Men, and she was married in the comics to the Black Panther, and she does have a relationship to them. So the symbology that you mentioned is connected for those readers of the comic through the character Storm of the X-Men, who is in essence the goddess Oya.
Yes, which is the goddess. Actually, she corresponds to the goddess Sekhmet, which is, another aspect when we look at Bast, that was, the central goddess in the film. What would you say, Brother Jabari, in terms of some of the things we were talking about, earlier today in our discussion, that this is really something that is causing such a tremendous healing because it is speaking, to our narrative, our Kemetic narrative, our ancient culture, spiritual culture. And we see that, many of the characters speak to the Trinity, the story of, Heru, Set, and Asar, and Ast. What would you say in terms of really reconnecting the people back to that ancient story and understanding that more thoroughly?
Well, I think that one of the things that we have to recognize is that part of this narrative's power is the fact that it draws heavily from our sacred myth. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those things that's easy to see, obviously, because even in the comics, Sekhmet and Bast are connected to Wakanda. And we know these are two sacred feminine goddesses from the Kemetic tradition. But we also see things like the salute of Wakanda being the crossed arms.
Yes.
Even so, that's another reference. We also notice once again that T'Challa is essentially the Heru of this story. And in order to reclaim himself, in order for him to actually find himself, he has to connect to his father in the spiritual realm. In many ways, this is the story of HetHeru then finding Asar on the throne. So this is a very interesting way to tell the story. And if we look at it that way and see that they've drawn so heavily from the most ancient of all narratives, then we can even see one of the reasons why Killmonger is so interesting, because Killmonger is clearly Sutek. He is clearly Set, the Set character.
Yes.
And for those people who are not extremely versed in the Kemetic narrative, they might actually say that Killmonger is supposed to be a villain. But in actuality, even in the ancient Kemetic myth, when HetHeru defeats his uncle Sutek for the throne, he does not kill his uncle because his ideas are necessary. And this is one of the reasons why we begin to see that T'Challa, in overcoming the central conflict in the film, then incorporates some of the ideas that come from Ndajaka, who is Killmonger, and also ideas that we first hear, by the way. This is one of the things that brothers and sisters in the hood sometimes miss. The first person in the movie to say that that Wakanda should play a larger role in the lives of Black people is actually Nakia. Actually, her involved in a conflict that is a clear reference to the Chibok girls of Nigeria. We also see there be a commentary on the painful life of child soldiers. So they really did reach far to describe some things that we know are resonating in our community and things that we need to talk about. So I really enjoyed that aspect of the film.
Yeah, very powerful. I mean, you know, the symbolic nature and the dimensions of this film. I just saw it last night again for the second time. You know, I was just like, I have to see this again just so I can, you know, stay abreast. And really, you know, you have to see it so many times to really catch everything. So, and that was really refreshing as well, you know, and that really, you know, spoke to another level, you know, of the, you know, the artistic expression, you know, of African people, so many different dimensions. And it was very, very powerful for me because I saw things that I did not see the first time. And particularly, I like to address the, you know, the real main element in the film, which was the meteorite, right? That that struck
the blood
Wakanda.
vibranium. Right.
And that is so powerful. That is something that, you know, speaks to so many levels of our culture. There was a brother who recently did a YouTube video and really showed the historical nature, you know, of mining, you know, in Africa, and really showing how so many tribes you know, incorporated mining, you know, into different shrines, and how this was woven in as a form of worship, that there was a spiritual dimension that they understood of the meteorite. And that was just really powerful for me, being a priestess of Sekhmet and Bas, because that was something that I learned, you know, in my work, in my initiation, that, you know, the asteroids and the meteorite and these different cosmic manifestations are governed over different aspects of the nature, by different aspects of the nature. And so here being Sekhmet. So that was really powerful for me to see in film, and then to hear people doing the decoding, like this brother, Obsidian Patah, who has a YouTube video where he really goes back and shows the history of mining and iron mining and meteorites in our communities. So that was very powerful, and I think it speaks to the current moment. I mean, I don't know how many people are familiar with the OSIRIS-REx project that NASA has going on right now in space. That was launched, I think it was last year in September, from the Kennedy Space Center to interface with the Bennu asteroid. Okay, the Bennu asteroid. And so we know that they have agendas to do mining as far as, these meteorites are concerned. And also they are dealing with this particular asteroid that they feel is in the trajectory with the Earth. And that's some powerful science right there, that they called it Bennu, and that this particular program is called the OSIRIS-REx program out of NASA. And you can look that up and do your research about that. So I think, this was all very powerful and speaking to the forces of nature, which we need to reconnect to, and really how we're connected, to natural phenomena, how we're connected to our ancestors, and how we can use those forces for empowerment. And I think that's the most important thing that this film spoke to, minus the CIA agent and whatever other propaganda was in the film. What would you, brother, say about that?
I actually truly, I think that one of the things that we must not overlook is the importance of vibranium in this film. Yes. Now, let's get, of course, vibranium is a fictional element. Got it. But what is the larger commentary? The larger commentary is that Africans worldwide will be empowered when we are in control of the resources of Africa.
Yes.
So that while in this film we're talking about a fictional element, we could have just inserted iron, diamonds, bauxite, coltan, all of those resources that are found on the continent and used by other people. If Africans were in control of the mineral wealth of Africa, Africans would be the most powerful people on the planet. It's always been said that Africa is very wealthy, its people are poor. And so this is something that I think is critically important as well. Now, with regard to your comment on the iron mining and metal mining, I'll tell you, Priestess HetHeru, I mean, this is powerful because this is something I find very interesting. When we look at the Western myth, we see the metal workers being these dwarfs, right? Mm-hmm. In fact, we even see them referenced in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, directly where Martin Freeman, the actor that plays the CIA operative in Black Panther, comes from. And one of the things that they do is they are mining a mountain of gold. That's their wealth. But let's look at the myth itself. There's an older African myth of the smallest, earliest, the oldest people on the planet that actually that excel in mining of metals and actually the cultivation of these metals. The ancient Kemetic people call them the Twa people. And sometimes they have been derogatorily referenced as the Pygmy people. So I think that what we actually should recognize is that this myth of an early people who mastered the mining of metals, it is actually an echo of an ancient African story. And we're seeing it here once more in this movie.
Powerful.
I think one of the interesting things, that this whole issue that people talk about with vibranium has really shed light on a lot of people's consciousness, because I've seen so many arguments or debates jump up because one person said Black Panther, they didn't want to share the vibranium, etc. T'Chaka, his father, they didn't want to share it. Another person said to him, in capitalism, this is how we do. I was like, whoa. So basically it was accepting the narrative of I'm not mad at that, which a lot of us were saying no, that's problematic, that Wakanda didn't. But other people are saying no, they look at people in your own community. Are you helping them out? You have more resources. You have more things than them. Are you helping them out?
Brother Cinque, I'm sorry. We have 3 callers calling in on the line. Okay, we have a caller that's been holding on for some time, 954 area code. Can you please say your name and where you're calling from?
Hi, my name is Askias X.
Askia, calling from 347 number. How you doing, brother?
Beautiful. God is good.
Yes. And do you have a comment or a question that you'd like to share?
On what particular topic would you like me to speak on?
What we're talking about today. Do you have a question for our callers or our guests? Well, I'll tell you what. Why don't you just hold on, and we'll come back to you. Maybe you can think of a question or a comment that you can.
I can think of a question. How can we make things better here on this planet? All of us.
Okay. Well, we are going to address that. I think we were talking about the film and its relation to reality. But we're going to come back to you because I want you to hold on. We have a 954 caller. Caller, are you still there?
I'm here. I can speak on Black Panther.
Okay.
Are you talking about who called in before? Or?
Yes, 954. Yes, 463. You have a question for our guest or a comment?
Oh, okay. This is Karan. I called in earlier. I didn't just call in just now.
Okay. Do you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, I had one earlier, and then I lost my train of thought. So, well, I just wanted to say I had a comment. I feel like this movie, it's just miraculous that it's even come to the big screen. And I agree with one of the speakers who said earlier that they're not even completely sure if Marvel realizes the impact that the film would have, just massive impact that it would have on just the awakening of our people. So I thought that was an interesting comment because I sat in the theater feeling like, wow, I can't believe this movie even made it to the screen, because for me, it's almost like it could have the potential if we order our steps right, and it could have the potential to have the same impact that the Birth of a Nation had. I feel it's that powerful.
Okay.
I mean, as far as not the same, but the 360 shift that we need, not the creation of the African American male as the boogeyman, but the actual opposite of that. Balancing things out.
You, sister. Yes, we appreciate your comments, and we have about 24 minutes to the remainder of the show, and so we ask if you can mute yourself, or you can hang up, and then someone else can call in. The number here is 310-928-7733. Again, that's 310-928-7733, and we're being joined today by Brother Jabari Osaze and Brother Cinque Brathway, and we're talking about the Black Panther film and decoding its symbolic language for the empowerment of our communities. We have another caller calling in from a 323 area code. Caller, can you say your name and if you have a question or comment? And please try to keep them short because we're out of time soon.
HetHeru, High Priestess. This is Kemet RaatMwt from Atlanta, Georgia, by the way of Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Yes, I just want to give a brief comment on all of these brothers, man. One, I want to commend you on the work and the presentation because it's definitely right on time. And imagery is very important. So this is what you're doing, and I believe what you're doing is basically getting to the root of like the self-hatred and the healing from what we've been suffering for a long time.
Okay, thank you so much. Do you have a question?
You know what? No questions at all, man. I mean, just continue. Cause, matter of fact, I do have a question, real briefly. Because I'm in the process of researching, because I want to do a martial arts play tracing back to Africa. So, I'm just basically in the process where I want to research that. I've done some research.
Okay, I'm sorry, beloved. We need questions about the film right now. But if you can call in, we're going to have some following shows about African martial arts and looking at its lineage. And maybe that's when you can give us a call back.
Okay. Other than that,
okay, and the other callers, if you can hang up, and we're going to allow some other people to have a chance to call.
Okay.
Hello?
Thank you so much. Hotep?
Yes, Aski.
Hotep, Askia, you have a question?
Yeah, I want to know if anybody out there can you're dealing with decoding the movie. I want to know, did anybody really comprehend like what we all know is going to be the inevitable inside the movie with the part that Michael B. Jordan played to show that what he was attempting to do was wrong. In the movie, that's how they portray that. This is the inevitable for this planet. What Michael B. Jordan, the character that he played, and what he represented. This is the inevitable of what's going to happen here. Okay? And, you know, that's my comment. But it's just you know, profound that for something that's inevitable, you portray it to be wrong. So I guess everything that's going on this planet is correct.
All right. Well, thank you for your call. Thank you for your call.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and brothers, would you like to speak to any of those comments or questions?
Well, I'll start off. I don't think that. Again, I thought we said earlier we didn't see Killmonger as a villain. He is the antagonist in the film. Killmonger has a correct message. He was the wrong messenger. Is what I said earlier. And not only is he the wrong messenger because of his background and past and how damaged he was, his methodologies and going about trying to get liberation for our people are flawed just from the foundation of what he was trying to do. It's obvious he had dictatorial tendencies where he's like, there'll be no more kings after me, burn the heart-shaped herb. But we do recognize his Pan-Africanist spirit and what he wanted to do in terms of liberating African people was correct.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I think that's deep. Again, that speaks to earlier conversations that I was having today with different people, including you, Brother Jabari. I think that this whole character, embodies so much that we need to discuss in the community for healing, particularly around Africans on the continent and Africans in the diaspora, and what really we need to speak to in terms of identity and the Holocaust experience and its impact and how we relate to this day, was taking place. Could you speak a little to that information that we were talking about earlier about this character?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that, honestly, as someone who is doing work in our communities every day, as you all are, I know that you probably have the same experience that sometimes it is challenging to speak to the person on the corner, the person at the barbershop, the person at the fish place about some of these issues, because it sounds like it's coming out of left field. But the very fact that some of these issues are so topical in this film and that so many of our people have gone to see it, it becomes extremely current, and we're able to have a deeper conversation. One of those conversations must be about the healing that must occur between the continental African and the diasporan African. There are many people who feel that say things like, well, why didn't they come for me? There are many people who say, are we really the same people anymore? There are many people who say, well, honestly, they were the ones that sold us away. Now, all of those comments are not entirely factually true, but they are feelings that we have within the diaspora. And I know, as someone who sees myself as a conscious person who is connected to Africa, in my first trip to Ghana, there were times that I was angry. I actually I heard people say, well, we heard the story of people who were taken away because they would not listen to their parents. And that was their way of understanding enslavement. I ended up feeling very angry until a great elder historian by the name of Ronoko Rashidi, who I have to always give honor for his role in my life, he actually stepped forward and took me after he saw me really losing it at one point, and took me to a small building that I didn't know. I had no idea what it was. He said, what is this building, Jabari? There was a small shelf with about 10 books on it. And after making a few guesses that it was an office or someone's home, he said, no, this is the library. I remember thinking, 10 books in this village and this is the library? And he said, how can you be angry you, the most powerful African in the world, when you have not seen it fit to protect your image in your homeland? So the challenge must be with us to make sure that we are in dialogue with those who are still in our African home, and that we play a role in the future and the present of our homeland. That is actually where we will draw power. And this is one of the major commentaries in the film. They are powerful because they control the vibranium.
Yes.
They are powerful because they still embrace their own aesthetic, not someone else's aesthetic. There wasn't a bit of permed hair other than the wig that our threw into the colonizer's face.
Yes, that was
commentary about the unification of Africans.
Yes.
We see it in all of the different African nations that are represented in the iconography of the film, and even literally in where all of these people of African descent, these actors come from all over the world, from Ghana to South Africa to Kenya to Zimbabwe to Guyana to the United States to Trinidad. This is a commentary on our unification. And finally, if I could say this very quickly, Brother Ryan Coogler, who is a brilliant mastermind.
Yes.
This commentary clear when we first see these Africans outside of Africa, what colors are they wearing? We see T'Challa in black.
There you go.
We
see
Nakia in green, and we see Okoye in red. The commentary is that our power will come from our unity as well. And so this is a really powerful meditation that we can actually use for our healing. But we have to do the work. We can't think that the movie itself is the panacea that cures us. We have to now do the work and have these conversations in the community, conversations that we couldn't have a month ago easily.
And the film is doing that. It has served as a stepping board for these conversations, because in the past, when you have had films that may have had a Pan-African cast, with blacks from all over, any Africans from the Caribbean, etc., you have not seen people in the other countries where you may have an actor or actress from talking about the film. And the Black Panther is the first of that, where you see people, African people in Sweden and Europe and Africa and all of these places talking about the film. And as the Priestess said earlier, you're not going to get it all in one viewing, because the first time I saw the film, I did not see the red, black, and green. And it was not until I saw Coogler talking about it that I realized it, because it's happening so fast in the images. Look, for African people who are starved for imagery in the Western Hemisphere, especially positive imagery, which is what attracted everybody, you cannot take you got sensory overload. You're not going to get it all in one time. Even I saw a brother say, wait, what about the Underground Railroad? I didn't catch that. I didn't catch that Killmonger and Black Panther were having a fight on an Underground Railroad in the latter half of the movie, because this vibranium had created this infrastructure train system that was underground. It was not, able to be seen from above. If you came to Wakanda, it was underground. I didn't see the Harriet Tubman symbolism in that likeness. So it's so much in the imagery. You're not going to get it all at one time. There are going to be certain things that you're going to pick up maybe a third or fourth time, or sometime you may not pick it up. You may need to see Ryan Coogler, a director, someone talking about it and sharing the information, because that's just what it is. I mean, no matter how brilliant we are, there are certain things we're gonna miss, and it's all there. And another thing before I defer, that a lot of people talk about in the film, the fact of T'Challa. T'Challa never said in terms of the politics that he was going to now give vibranium to the world. That's never what happened when we see him at the UN. Okay, if anything, we can infer that he was coming from an internationalist perspective. Sort of like Fidel. When we talk about internationalism, what we're talking about in politics is a principle. It transcends nationalism, advocates greater political and economic cooperation among nations and peoples. So that's why, you might, Fidel, we call it internationalist, for he went outside of Cuba. He's all in Africa, and he always talks about internationalism. And we saw before he passed Hugo Chavez, the same sort of thing, internationalism. These are constant words in their vocabulary. So it's easy for me just to infer from where I stand that that's what T'Challa was going to do, as opposed to, because he's at the UN, he's saying that we're just giving our resources to other countries, because that's not what I took from it. But again, that goes back to where people are at politically and how they want to frame it. That's what they see. So we could talk for 10 hours. We're never going to come to all agreement on what the politics of the film. And we can only have these great discussions about what it means to each of us.
Yeah, I think that's really important to understand, the nature of this film on different levels. It presents the opportunity for us to do that, and therefore go through this healing, to have, these discussions in terms of Africans in the diaspora, Africans on the continent, our ancient spiritual culture that this is speaking to, our connection to our ancestors and how central that is, and how much of an upliftment, how much of a blessing that is to have centrally, in our lives, to be able to connect. And I think it's very key that they showed you in the film, T'Challa, when he went to the ancestral plane, it was through Bast, the goddess. So there wasn't any isms or schisms or war of the sexes going on in that situation. He was aligned with his feminine goddess self and in reverence of her. This was part of the culture. And he was able to commune with his ancestors through Bast. I think that's very important for our people as we've gone through, the patriarchal religious conditioning where we have been disconnected from the goddess within us and within nature, that we saw this in the film. And that's why it was so healing and empowering as well. We didn't have the dichotomy and the war of, the feminine and the masculine and the suppression of the feminine, the goddess and all of that. It was just a balance, which is a representation of the Ma'atian spiritual culture, where we understand the complementary nature, and the androgynous nature in terms of divinity itself. So I thought that was very empowering, and that he was actually able to go to higher levels of consciousness, and do this ritual utilizing the sacred herb and showing the importance of herbology in African culture and how we use these herbs to heal. And we saw a lot of that in the film. We use these herbs to commune with spirit. So it was reconnecting our people to their culture, to their spiritual greatness. And that was why there is such a hunger, because for people who have been stripped of their culture and stripped of their language, this is something that is a tremendous healing. What would you both share about that?
Oh, I say it definitely, the fact that we've been stripped of so much, our culture, our spirituality, traditions. That's such a key. That's such a key hurt, and that's such a key longing for with our people. And again, although this is a film by Disney, a corporate entity, we have to keep also in mind that a lot of these concepts, when they come from African people, Black Panther, as we see him now on the big screen, was not the same Black Panther when Stan Lee, Jack Kirby created him in '66. He has been developed by Christopher Priest and other African writers along the way, developing these ancillary sort of concepts that are very powerful, like the Dora Milaje, etc., all throughout the film. There's been a development. This is us speaking to us through these creative works, because initially the Black Panther story and the Wakanda and all that, it was not this grand. It has been developed by us. So we should keep that in mind, that this is African storytelling, even though the person credited with inventing the Black Panther is not of African descent. This is still African storytelling.
Mm-hmm. Brother Jabari?
I think one of the things that's powerful here is also we see these powerful sisters, the Dora Milaje, and we don't see men feel uncomfortable with them being beautiful and powerful at the same time.
Yes.
I think that there's a lot to say about gender relations here.
Yes.
There's a lot to say that it seems clear that Killmonger, the only people he kills in the film, by the way, are Claw, a racist South African, and women. The only people he kills in the film. So there's also a commentary. I would agree with your analysis that we are seeing misogyny. So I think that this is another thing that we need to analyze. The role that we see these feminine deities play in the prosperity of this nation, I think is something that we need to not miss. By the way, something else I wanted to mention really quickly. Do you notice that when they take the heart-shaped herb and go to the ancestral land, they have to be buried? So once again, this is a rebirth scene as well. The same sort of commentary that we would have seen utilized. There's some people who believe that the only savior that is reborn is Jesus Christ. And that's because they haven't opened the book to the first chapters. We have to recognize that this concept of the rebirth that must occur in all of us in order for us to reach our divinity is an ancient African story. I was also amazed that this did not even reference the Abrahamic traditions. It's almost like they didn't exist. So think about your power. You can only talk about your story. You don't even have to go to they story, as we would call it. We don't even have to do that. So there's a lot that we have to do in order to talk about some of the things that come off of this film. And I think that if we do it, we're going to find ourselves in a different place.
Yes, we have 5 minutes to close. And we would like you to just, if you can, in a synopsis, what is your synopsis in terms of what you would like to share about this film?
One thing I'd like to share, I'm very happy that this movie's done so well at the box office, and I'm monitoring how it's doing in each region of the globe. Specifically, I'm interested in seeing how it's going to do in China overall. But not only that, I'm thinking that this allows Coogler on his resume. He said now next story he's doing is Mansu Musa. You know, we're going to be taking a look at that. I'm hoping people get as excited about a real historical figure and who is another example of the African excellence, par none, and who has another amazing story as they are fictional excellence. You know, I hope we can bridge the gap between the two because, you know, it's going to be interesting to see what he does with that. If you know the history of Mansu Musa, to some, you know, his religious leanings and everything, some are not comfortable with. So I'm happy that it's done well and that I got to catch up to you guys and see it a third time with my mom.
Can you share your contact information?
Yes, our contact information. I can be reached at my first name, Cinque, and the word again, Cinque again at yahoo.com. CinqueAgain at yahoo.com.
Okay, thank you so much. Brother Jabari, your synopsis?
Yes, I honestly believe that any movie that has us talk about the relations between Black folk and how we can move into power without really significantly referencing other people is powerful. Any image that allows us to enjoy how we look, how the Creator made us, is powerful. Any conversation around how Black folk can be powerful without the role of other people, giving us things or begging them for anything, is powerful. And so I really think that we need to continue to see this film. I've seen it now 4 times. I'm probably going to see it again today because I'm analyzing it. I'm probably going to have an event where the community comes together and talks about it because I think we need to continue to talk about these things. And I'm really excited for the future using this kind of teaching modality. Let me just say, in order to get me, you can reach me if you go to my website, shrineofmaat, MAAT.org. You can reach me. My email is Djed, D-J-E-D, at shrineofma'at.org. And I'm even going to give you a cell phone number. It's 646-853-0496. If you reach out, please, texting is better, because if I'm in an interview like I'm in right now, I can't answer the phone. But clearly, I'm hoping that we'll be able to connect more as a community to talk about how we can move forward in peace and power.
Yes. And I'd like to just share that if you'd like to reach me, you can reach me at the Benu Ascension Institute at gmail.com. We have online Ascension classes going on this week. And we have a lot of things that we're sharing right now about this particular ascension process as we move under the constellation of Aquarius in year 2039. I'd like to thank our wonderful guest today, and we will continue next week with the third part of this series on the film. We'll hopefully at that time also get more into vibranium, because I know we didn't have the chance today, and I know a lot of people have been making, connections to melanin and vibranium and what that means for us as well. So thank you for joining us, family, and please join us next week as we continue this journey forward. Shemotep, peace and blessings.
Let's go higher, higher consciousness. Let's go higher, inner consciousness. Let's go higher. I'm gonna touch the sky.